Welcome along, one and all, to a rather special occasion in APP. It is the last chapter of this spectacular championship week across all APPF1 tiers. The season finale of Season 13 of the Elite tier is up on the menu for tonight, and the venue for this decisive battle royale will be the immortal Dutch circuit of Zandvoort. Wow, what a scenario we have going into this final round. The tail of the tape going into the final round looks just like this. Both the Drivers' and Constructors' Championships sit on a knife edge as it stands going into this final round. In the Drivers' Championship, the reigning and defending four-time Elite Champion Red Flame Joe leads the way, but only just. Sat just 4 points adrift, is the most successful driver in the history of APP F1, three-time Elite Champion Ghost. And next up, just 8 points off the championship lead, is the current #1 ranked driver in the entire league, Tier 1 champion CPI Finlay, the man we currently ride on board with. And that's not all. On the outside looking in is a monstrously talented driver who is now making that talent count here in the Elite tier. It is Lancer, still right in the mix, 16 points off the lead. That is the standings for the Drivers' Championship. The Constructors also a tussle to watch. The Williams of Joe and Reshka hold a narrow upper hand over the Red Bulls of Ghost and Rick. Wow, that is what we have in prospect for what should be an electrifying final round. We've already had two incredible title deciders in Tier 2 and Tier 1, so hopefully Elite does follow suit. But we are now getting this session kicked off and underway, so let's see how this one is going to play out. Watching on board with CPI Finlay, of course, has been the dominant driver in over one lap throughout this championship, but we'll see how that's going to translate into racing. Of course, comes into this in a good position, but still has some points to make up again. As I said, coming in 4 points behind Joe in the standings. We'll keep an eye on that all the way through. There's going to be a lot of maths going on to try and put all of this together, but Finlay circulating here on track, 47.9 through the first two sectors as a cumulative. That's very fast for a banker run, as you would expect from such an incredibly fast and talented driver over one lap. CPI Finlay, of course, trying to stake his claim for a first Elite title. The Tier 1 champion comes up towards the line, gets this session kicked off with a 108.8. I believe his pole time in Tier 1 was an 8.7, so already getting right down towards that, but you can expect the standard to be very, very high. As just catching Lawrence there through a turn 3, having a bit of a moment on the circuit, but managing to navigate and continue. Next up on the track behind, though, is the electric Stephen Vasso. Not a championship contender, but I tell you, I expect this man to be looking every bit of one in terms of the show that he puts on track. Because Stephen Vasso, an incredibly fast driver, and proving it there on that banker lap already. A 108.6. Expect the lap times to come in quick. We only have 13 drivers on the grid tonight, but it is Zandvoort, and being a short track, you are going to get lap times coming in all across the board as everyone looks to stack up against one another. We'll see where everyone stands. Reshka across the line, not a competitive lap, of course. A lot of pressure on Reshka as well for tonight. Williams right in that Constructors fight. Red Flame Joe as well, the leading driver for Williams, the leading driver in the championship. Again, the last 4 Elite Championships have gone the way of this man, but a little ways off the top times on the banker lap for Red Flame Joe, so work to do out there at the moment. Lawrence comes across the line, as I said, did have a bit of a moment further down the lap, so let's see who else we can find on a flying lap. I believe it'll be the V-carb of Jacko Lacko heading through towards the end of that second sector. A little bit of lag on board. Hopefully it's all fine. He runs through turns 11 and 12. Very, very tough section of the track, keeping it on the island though. Then he's going to flick it in to that penultimate corner, straighten up, open up that throttle pedal, flat out through the banking DRS so early, and that sets up that overtaking run all the way down towards turn 1. You're going to see that in the race as well, should it be dry, but Jacko Lacko, a 110.2, gets his second kicked off, is just pepped by a second run from a Reshka, showing that there's plenty more pace to come from the Williams driver in this session. He's just in front of Ghost also, of course, a championship contender in both the drivers and the constructors. A three-time elite champion, and getting his session off to a moderate start, shall we say, as behind. They've got to watch out for OVR Lancer, of course. See how the Ferrari man gets on. Again, on the outside looking in, relatively speaking, in this championship fight. But that can be a good thing. He has the enviable position of having nothing to lose ahead of this final round. So expect the Ferrari man to be all guns blazing. We'll see, although he did say in the chat earlier that he is feeling a little bit ill. So we'll see how he gets on. Hello to Ghost, hello to Denko in the chat. Appreciate the kind words from you guys. And yeah, hopefully, obviously, was you two guys were very much involved in that incredible Tier 2 race to round up the championship. Hopefully, again, Elite is just that dramatic here in Season 13 of the Elite tier. As Lancer in the Ferrari is going to see this lap through. The sector times are looking good, and it is good enough for third at the moment, 109 flat. I'm expecting times to get towards the low 108s potentially if these guys are really on it, and expect them to be as they push further and further. But Stephen Vasso, no great surprise, is the man on top for the moment, and he's really the wild card in this round of the championship. Of course, we've only seen him a couple of times throughout this season in terms of participations, but such an incredibly talented driver, always sets the world alight, sets the track on fire as he races, and yeah, has contested, well, has only finished 2 races this season, P2 and P1 in both of those races, and certainly a driver who I imagine is going to be right up the front so far. So at the moment, it is him leading from Finley, Lancer, Red Flame, Joe, then Vandersnatch, who had a very impressive debut last time out in Spa, so certainly one to look out for. Once again, gets a solid start to his session as well. We'll keep an eye on Finley. Looks as though that lap has not gone his way, as he's coasting around turn number 10, so I think that lap will come to a somewhat premature end out there. Lewis in the Mercedes is circulating around as it stands at a very solid season. Of course, the highlight being that second place in Vegas, so certainly a driver capable on his day. 48.6 through the first sector, is probably tracking to be around about where his teammate Kylo Ren is coming off the back of a tremendous Tier 1 season and a Constructors' Championship to his name. Of course, Mercedes not quite in a Constructors' fight this season, but they've had a very solid run of it themselves, and they're going to be fighting for third in that Constructors' Championship over this final round. And without Kevin O'Reilly here tonight, you'd think that Mercedes are in a fairly good spot to snatch that up. Lewis ends up P9 on a 109.9, as we watch now as well, Finley is having another crack at it. Of course, this is a track where you can actually string together back-to-back laps, although he's low on fuel, that fuel light flashing. So I'm not sure if he's going to be able to complete this lap, but we will see, of course. He still looks to be running in anger as the Aston Martin runs right on the curb out of turn 10, and that will put pay to any attempt for the Aston Martin driver. So Stephen Vasso's time will survive for the time being, and of course he does have a further opportunity of being able to improve that time, does the Alpine driver, punching it out of that tricky traction zone at turn 10 towards that third sector. Uses a bit of the overtake, but it is nearly 0.3 of a second up. This man is absolutely flying. Another tough traction zone. Tries to straighten up the car and squirt the throttle, heading out of turn 12, flicking it in to turn 13, getting nice towards the inside curb. On the outside curb, though, a big snap of oversteer and managing to just about bring it under control, opening up that DRS. How much will that have cost him? Well, it hasn't cost him all that much. He did lose some time in that final sector, but more than enough to get himself onto a provisional pole position. Red Flame Joe, who I'm aware is fairly short on practice going into this race, on a 109.1, so not quite finding the top end speed out there, is the four-time champion, and there's another title contender, an elite champion, going off the road there at the treacherous turn 8. That is a corner that's deceptively hard, even though it's not particularly technical on the way in. You can see how the car gets away from you. Of course, there's another danger. If you get onto that outside curb, you can find yourself just being dragged off the circuit. Not a whole lot you can do. Very treacherous down there. And that's something the drivers are going to have to all be very, very wary of later on in the session. 8 minutes to go. We're already 10 minutes in. It feels like it's been relentless action so far. Steven Basso on top, and at the moment, no one has been able to match the flying speed of the race winner of the Qatar Grand Prix earlier in the season. Can anyone live up to that? We shall see later on. The ever-improving Lawrence in the Haas, not improving on this lap, I'm afraid, getting invalidated. Jaco Lacco was further down on the track, but not able to find time either, having a bit of a scruffy first sector there. We'll keep an eye on Lancer, of course. As I said, the man with nothing to lose in that championship fight. He's also not fighting for constructors in any case, so he can just go all in for tonight. His sector times are looking solid, but he is still 300s down on his current time, that 109 flat. We'll see if he can find more time in that last sector. I think if he nails it, he can still get into the 108s and still potentially get near to that time of CPI Finlay, at least to strengthen his claim to that third place in the session, burning the last of his battery of reserves, and he does go into third position. For the time being, does the Ferrari driver, 108.936, 6.5 minutes to go in qualifying here. Let's see how this session is going to unfold. Ghost managing to get a lap in there after the error on the last lap. You're seeing a lot of drivers making mistakes and resetting and getting back out there and putting in solid times. Ghost improves substantially, goes to P6, but still adrift of all of his championship rivals who sit second, third and fourth for the moment. But we know with Ghost, especially this season, typically that quali pace is not a scratch on his race pace, and that's what we've seen typically for the arguable GOAT of the APPF1 league, currently sixth at the moment. His teammate Rek has had a tougher time of it though. Of course, Elite typically not his favourite tier. He's still put in a solid season though, and of course has put Red Bull in a strong position for the constructors, at least up to this point. But Williams have had the edge in this qualifying session up to this point, so we'll see how that holds up later on. But a bit of a lull in the session, just over 5 minutes to go. Steven Basso has looked virtually untouchable at the top of the timesheets, just over 0.3 of a second clear of CPI Finlay, clearly at one with this circuit. Of course, Zandvoort is a track where qualifying position tends to be oh so important. Adamant, you could say. It is a difficult track to overtake on. Of course, there's one very clear cut overtaking opportunity that's headed down into a Tarzan corner at turn 1, getting the car stopped and turned in there with that lengthy DRS zone, which runs all the way through the banking, all the way down the main straight. That opens up some of the opportunities there, but yeah, that's really it. There is, of course, the DRS into turn 11, and you can see scuffles throughout the entirety of the first sector. Turn 3, turn 7 tend to be opportunities, but generally speaking, it's a tough track to move up at in a DRS straight. It's alright if you're running in the top 2, but if you're further back, progress is going to be hard to come by. We could get a full lap here on board with last week's debutant Van der Snatch. As I said, very, very impressive raw speed from the kick server driver. We'll see how this lap is going to unfold as he flicks it into turn 2. The car can get very unstable on the exit, but he keeps it well within the boundaries of the grip and manages to keep it running, keep it going on the uphill run towards turn 7. This corner, you've got to be careful more so to not scrub off as much speed. It wasn't the best first sector time as Jaco brings his session to a close. Maybe you used all of his tyre sets in this session, so the V-Carb driver will start no higher than 10th. That 10 flat will remain as his time for the session. Van der Smack, we'll see if he can find a little bit more time again. It was a scruffy first sector for the kick server. We'll see if the second sector is better. Still 2/10 down and braking quite late going into that final complex at the chicane. Doesn't go right out to the curb, trying to preserve a load of traction there as he navigates that final corner. It doesn't look like it's going to be particularly fast though. He's driving well within the boundaries of the track and does indeed back off. Will try and reset, actually dives to the pit lane. If he does have another set of tyres, that will still be a good opportunity. Of course, Zandvoort, a very short track, so that turnaround is very fast and you should be able to get that car back out before long. 3 minutes to go in this enthralling qualifying session. At the moment, Steven Basso has looked virtually untouchable. He's out early too, just tailing Reshka out there. We'll keep an eye out on these times as they come in. Reshka, of course, again, a lot of pressure on this man. Williams looking good in the constructors as it stands, especially at the moment. They're up in front of Red Bull, but it can all change in these final runs. So what kind of catharsis will come at the end of this qualifying session? 2.5 minutes to go. More and more cars getting themselves out onto the racetrack. Let's see how this one is going to unfold. It's going to be a cracker. 2 minutes to go in the session. Zandvoort is about to go wild. And so Reshka 95 will get these final runs kicked off, weaving from side to side down the straight. Actually has not decided to deploy battery at all, so in fact he will not get things underway. Steven Vasso behind, flying into turn number 1, is up behind that Williams now, burning that battery. Hopefully he's not held up much, as Van der Snatch has been disqualified from the session there, and that's on the pit exit, so not sure what on earth has happened there, but that's bitterly disappointing for the Kick Sauber driver, relegated to the rear of the field. Steven Vasso finds a fraction of time into the 23s in the first sector. I do not have to tell you how phenomenal that speed is from the Alpine. Can he find more though in this middle sector, flicking it in to turn 9, locking up that right front a little bit tough to control the rear end though through this complex. Gets onto that dangerous curve at the inside of turn 10, has to gather it back up on the exit. Will that have cost him much? What's the middle sector time looking like? He has lost a fraction. He can still regather it though, as he takes a beautiful line through the chicane at 11 and 12, regathering up that car, gets right out to the wide line, flicking it in, takes so much curb on the inside, too much on the outside, and the Alpine spins into the wall and brings his competitive running in this session to a close. The door could be open. Can anyone take advantage? Steven Vasso has done exactly the same. What on earth has happened there, as he's tried to recover the car and he's out of the session? Unbelievable! Steven Vasso, as he tried to bring the car back onto the track, has been disqualified. What on earth has gone on there for the Alpine driver? Disaster. There's no stewards inquiry that can save that, of course. That is it for his session. And cars being ticked off the order here, and the order drastically changes. The entire conflection of this entire event completely changes. As I said, the door is open. Who will be able to walk through it? Kylo Ren over the line, goes to position number 4. His teammate Lewis behind is having to reset after a botched opening run, so that will be no good for the Mercedes Lancer. Invalidated. He will remain in P2 for the moment, and he won't come across the line, so that will be it for his session. Who is going to be next up to challenge? Reshka is finding plenty of time out there. He is 4/10 nearly behind Ghost, but if he has a good sector, he could even leapfrog above Kylo Ren, and what a lap that would be for Williams. What a critical run to the line this could be. Reshka, sixth at the moment, goes third. What a lap from Reshka under that pressure. As I said, Red Flame Joe is finding a little bit of speed, but at the moment it doesn't look enough to challenge the front row. Can he at the very least claw himself ahead of his teammate, and with a clear line of sight he breaks over the line as Finlay with a storming lap of 108.4. Oh, that's a stunner from CPI Finlay, and he goes well clear of the rest here at Zandvoort. Critical laps as Ghost pulls into the pit lane, will start no higher than 6th. Over the line, Rick goes right behind his teammate, 7th. Is there anyone else? Lawrence across the line, not a competitive lap. Kylo down. Lewis finding a fraction of time, a couple of hundredths through the second sector. Does he find more last sector? He does, but it's not enough to go ahead of Rick. And CPI Finlay with, in the end, a dominant pole position. That is an incredible lap. 108.404, more than half a second clear. And as is often the case, with his 5th pole position of the season, he has laid down a marker ahead of this race. And you'd have to say, what looked like his closest challenger in terms of raw speed around this track, Steven Vasso, who has clarified over in the Discord chat, was entirely his own mistake. Looks as though he went into AI when he was trying to recover to the track. And oh, sorry, no, sorry, that's actually looking at Van der Snatch. Van der Snatch, that was it. So we also saw him getting disqualified after a very solid race. My bad, but yes, so. he ends up out of the session along with Stephen Vasso. Finley, though, on that pole position by a dominant by standards margin ahead of Lancer and Reshka. Red Flame Joe takes fourth. Great qualifying session for Williams. Kylo Ren ahead of Ghost, then Rick, Lewis and Jacko, then Lawrence and JB, and finally Stephen Vasso and Vandersnatch. What a turn at the end of that session, but it is CPI Finley who is in the pound seat ahead of this final race. And Ghost in the chat saying, yes, turn 10 was the curse. We also saw, of course, Stephen Vasso having a little bit of a moment there. It can happen to anyone at that incredibly difficult turn. You can't get on the inside. You can't overextend on the throttle pedal on the exit, as that will completely to spit the car out. As, Stephen Vasso saying the end, it's just pushed too hard. He was slightly down and went for glory in the end, coming up short. So we look forward immediately to the race here at Zandvoort, the action coming thick and fast at this final round. It is Finley who's going to have a dominant run from pole. Lancer, though, keeping his championship hopes alive as much as he can, half a second back. Then Reshka and Red Flame Joe. It's great for Williams and the constructors, but for Red Flame Joe specifically, he's gonna have a decent recovery drive on. Of course, he is only 4 points ahead of Finley in the standings heading into this race. If Finley ends up winning, Red Flame Joe will have to at least finish on the podium. Can potentially get it with fourth in the fastest lap. Of course, that fastest lap point, where it goes, it could be oh so crucial ahead of this race. It is bright and sunny skies here at Zandvoort, so we should not expect rain. Of course, conditions can change very, very fast around here, but at the moment it's not looking this way as we go ahead to the season finale for Season 13 of Elite. We have 5 lights. And the Dutch Grand Prix is go from the front of the grid. Finley leads the way. Lancer with a slightly better getaway though. And the Ferrari pulls to the inside. Finley breaks late. Tries to hang it out all the way around the outside. Lancer stays in it though. The Ferrari driver is going to lead on lap 1. OVR Lancer, as I said, doing all he can in this championship fight. Relegates Finley to that second place. The Williams come next as Jacko has had an off down there at turn 3 and is going to be detached from the rest of the field. Disaster early on for the Scot on those soft tyres. Tries to recover that car. Soft tyres it is for Lancer too, who leads them away off that start, and he's going to try and use those softs to absolute advantage in these early laps. He's going to drag Finley with him. Then comes Reshka, then comes Red Flame Joe as we run throughout these early laps. At the moment, it certainly hangs in the balance ahead of the rest of this race. We have no telling how it could unfold, but Lancer does lead the way from CPI Finley, who's going to have to try and weather the storm in these opening couple of laps if he wants to stay in contention in this race. This is where it's going to be at its most dangerous, but Lancer deploying a lot of battery on this opening lap. Finley looks to be wise to it though. He's six tenths behind as the rest of the field tries to settle in. Stephen Vasso already on that comeback charge though. He draws alongside Lewis to the inside of turn number 1 and slides his way through into 8th position. Rick is up next. Stephen Vasso is going to be the man on the move, I imagine, in this opening stint. Up behind Rick now, of course, has a Constructors' Championship to worry about. He's going to try and stick with his teammate. It is the 2 Red Bulls somewhat detached from the 2 Williams further up the road, but Lancer does lead Finley and really stretching his legs out there. Again, burning a lot of battery, trying to put the rest of the field to the sword in this opening lap, getting very close to the outside curb at turn 9. He is pushing all of the boundaries, but Finley does have DRS and he can use that to full effect now and find his footing in this lead battle in the gap just under 7/10 of a second. Lancer leads Finley, leads Reshka, leads Joe. Kylo Ren struggling a little bit to live with the speed being set by the man on soft tyres at the front of the field. That's predictable as up the front. The Haas's swap places down there. P11 and P12 as Lawrence gets a tank slapper on out of that third to last corner, but remains ahead of JB. Jacko bridging across to those guys. Another potential move for Stephen Vasso, who's going to cruise past Rick on the main straight and move up into 7th place. Stephen Vasso continues to advance. He's going to have to push on this lap to get back, or at least hang on to DRS of Ghost in front of him. But the Ukrainian driver looks to be doing just that, moving his way up towards Ghost in front. The gap 8/10 of a second as Rick gets a bit of a snap of oversteer up behind the Alpine driver as JB's had an off down there at turn 3, tries to regather the car, get it back in a straight line, but he's already well adrift of the rest of the field now, and JB, better disappointment in these early laps, I'm afraid. It has been a tough season on the whole for that Haas squad, I'm afraid. Currently running 11th and 13th. Of course, points still on offer for every driver that sees the checkered flag in this race, so it's certainly worth persevering to see where the race does end up taking you. So we'll keep an update on the fastest lap point, of course, but Finley, P2, Red Flame Joe, currently sitting in P4, and that swing would be enough for Finley, but Finley wants even more as he charges up to Lancer and takes the lead away from the Ferrari driver, sweeps right off into the race lead, and my goodness, CPI Finley, after holding on to Lancer on that opening couple of laps when Lancer tried to break away, he is now the man on the mission, and Lancer is going to have to recover. He's recovered plenty of battery, and I think in these early laps he should have enough speed to stay with the Aston Martin, but Finley is going to make his mark, that's for sure. Reshka struggling to live with it. He's got to be wary, of course, his teammate Red Flame Joe, and I know these two guys tend to party up with each other. Red Flame Joe has got a Drivers' Championship to worry about, and he's going to be wary if Reshka is unable to stick with the front two. That gap is something we're going to have to watch very, very closely, and if this train breaks, you can imagine Finley is going to look to take full advantage of it. So Joe closes in on Red Flame Joe. Kylo Ren looked to be struggling for pace in the early laps. He is being distanced rather rapidly and has two very intimidating presences coming up behind him, and Ghost and Steven Vasso. So Kylo Ren is going to have to be looking in his mirrors. Vasso is right up behind Ghost, looking so rapid, is up in front. Lancer is going to try and retake that race lead, and does so as Joe sweeps past Reshka, and Steven Vasso is going to get two on the main straight. He runs deep into turn one, and Ghost has the nose at the inside, but knows better than to fully commit to that one. Again, he's got a championship, both the drivers and constructors, to think about, so he remains patient. He's going to try and stick with Steven Vasso as Vasso will try and charge up towards the top four. It's been a rapid recovery for the Alpine driver. He's not out of this fight just yet, not by a long shot, and he could help the drivers behind if they were able to live with him, and for Ghost especially, that's going to be very, very crucial to stick with Steven Vasso. Let's keep an eye out on that gap as JB's had another off at turn 3 just there on the track map. You can see it is a bit of a disastrous start to the Grand Prix for the Breton, and well, he'll be looking for a bit of an improvement as it stands. Again, he's had a difficult season up to this point with a lot of crashes, but yeah, at the moment he's got to hope for better fortunes later on in the race. As further back, Rick having it off. Rick spearing almost off the circuit out of turn 12. He manages to recover it, but how costly could that be? He drops right down the train, and Rick, not having that pull along from fast drivers like he was having earlier on, could really set him back. They swap places again at the front of the field. Vandersnatch also in his own recovery drive from that disqualification and qualifying on the soft tyres needs to make headway in these opening laps. He's doing just that. He gets past Lewis. He moves up into 8th position on the road. Can he chase down that 2-second gap to the drivers in front? It's going to be difficult. Steven is still pulling these guys along. Ghost and Kylo Ren, though, both keeping up very nicely to the back of the Alpine driver. And yeah, that gap between Steven and Reshka is going to be one to watch for a certainty. That is going to be very, very critical for both the way this race can unfold, but also, oh, Lancer's gone off! Lancer's gone off! Heading out of turn number 9, getting back the car, but that's caused a major split. The man that was trading the lead away with Finley didn't catch the nature of that. I was looking at my notes, I'm afraid, instead of the screen, as Ghost is round almost. Oh, he manages to just about corral the car back into a straight line, but that was a heart-in-mouth moment for both championship contenders on this 6th lap of the race. It's all coming up good as yeah, JB has decided to bring his evening to a close. Into the pits further behind is Lancer. Did he pick up wing damage, I wonder? It's well before where you'd expect to see pit stops. Usually, of course, this is from soft onto the mediums. It's not a wing change, it's a pit onto the hard tyres. That's an unusual strategy here at Zandvoort. Typically a medium soft or soft medium. So Lancer has decided to bite the bullet early, going for that undercut. Couple of moments though from a couple of drivers on that last lap has caused some breaks in the train. It's a promoted Red Flame Joe into a critical position number 2. But as it stands, it's still enough for Finley depending on where the fastest lap point goes. Fastest lap at the moment is with Steven Vasso. So At the moment, as it stands, CPI Finley would be doing enough, but only for a win by virtue of countback. So at the moment, that's far from certain. And well, Red Flame Joe is going to be pushing all out to get in that DRS, and he might have just done so on that exit of turn number 12 as Lawrence has had another off, and it is at the moment Haas drivers spearing off the track at the moment as Red Flame Joe critically does have DRS and will draw him a little bit closer to CPI Finley. And my oh my, is the battle on now up at the front. And Red Flame Joe, such an intelligent racer, such a clinical driver, and Finley will not be pleased one bit to see that his rival has managed to claw his way back into the contention as Lawrence has gone out of the race, heading into turn 12, and the safety car is brought out here on lap number 8. Well, let's see what the strategy is going to be for these drivers here on out, because Lancer has come in, of course, on the previous lap for a set of the hard tyres. Hard tyres will comfortably get to the end from here, although they aren't nearly as pacey in race trim as they are typically on other tracks on this game. So we'll see how that goes. Lancer is, well, going to be cursing, I imagine, in that cockpit the way his race has unfolded in the last couple of laps, but at the very least, this will bring him back into the pack. It remains to be seen where he'll be in relation to the other drivers. Now, I feel like for the soft runners, this is virtually a no-brainer to come into the pits for a set of the hards, or potentially even the mediums, which could go to the end from this distance if you look after them. But we'll see what they're going to do up at the front. And yeah, as I expected, it's going to be pit stops all around. Reshka's going to lose out big time here, though. Stacking behind his teammate, he's laid off a bit of a gap as Stephen Bass gets very close, and Reshka gets a 10-second time penalty just to compound what will be that double stack in the pit lane. And Reshka, and that can be so crucial too for the constructors' standings. It's an incredibly chaotic pit lane. And their Vandersnatch on his attempted recovery drive, picking up a 10-second time penalty as well, heading into the pits. You'd say it's almost needless on when it's under safety car, as Lancer is going to re-emerge in P7 with older tyres than the rest, and a lot of work to do. His championship chances are looking rather slim, as if the Ferrari man is going to have to move heaven and earth for that result to come through. But CPI Finley does lead the way from Red Flame Joe still, as the race is effectively reset, and every driver in the field now with the intention of taking these tyres to the end of the race. But as we saw, particularly in that Tier 2 race back on Tuesday, a lot can change, and a lot of safety cars can potentially come out. So that can certainly be an event which can shake up the nature of this Dutch Grand Prix, this titular battle here in APPF1 Elite Tier. The 13th season is coming to a close tonight, and we have the top two in the championship, the two drivers who have defined this season, the two drivers who have won 5 of the 9 races thus far, running at the front with very little to choose between them. But Stephen Vasso, arguably the fastest looking driver tonight, is now hot on their heels and will be searching for any which way through, and could be a bit of a spoiler too in this championship fight. Kylo Ren runs up behind him, then Ghost, and Ghost, unbeknownst to me, has actually picked up a 10-second time penalty in the pits as well. So as he's sped as well, and Ghost, he's going to come into the pit lane, yes, to serve it. So that's 3 drivers who have had that 10-second time penalty. Reshka is elected to stay out as Ghost and Vandersnatch come in. Not entirely sure where Reshka has decided to stay out. I imagine he thinks the track position is worth it, but of course with only 11 drivers in the field, it seems like it's a viable strategy to come in. And I was wondering this, Ghost does put on a set of the medium tyres. Does Vandersnatch do the same? He's going to as well. Medium tyres going to go in the Kick Sauber. You might as well. The medium tyres should go to the end from here. They will struggle in the later laps, but generally, say if you start on the softs and look to go to the mediums to the end of the race, you would be expecting to pit around about lap 12, 13, 14. So we're not far out of that pit window at all, and the mediums will go all the way. And Ghost, you might as well create that tyre offset at the very least. He's going to have a lot of grip in these opening laps. He's going to have to navigate his way to the field though. Wreck will not be a problem. Wreck will obviously jump out the way. But Jacko, Lacko, Lewis, Lancer of course is not going to lie down. He's in a championship fight with Ghost as well. And up in front is going to get oh so difficult. But Ghost, it's looking like it's going to be an uphill struggle at the moment for the 3-time elite champion. But you never know what this man is capable of. We shall see. Safety cars coming in at the end of this lap, and Finley will control things at the front. Currently, again, he does sit in championship winning position, but only on countback ahead of Red Flame Joe. So it is all still to play for, and we are so far from the checkered flag. Finley now is going to control proceedings at the front of the race. Lap 10 of 36, so long to go in Zandvoort. Finley is going to continue to drag them along. The pace is relatively fast on this restart for the Aston Martin driver. Red Flame Joe, of course, will be watching and waiting and wanting to react as best he can, and he's reacted very well there. He's managed to go right with Finley, but more Stephen Basso too. He's on an overtake button and looking to carve out a move. Red Flame Joe goes to the left hand side to the outside, and Stephen Basso tries to poke a nose on the inside to get oh so close in the middle of turn 1 as Jacko has gone out of the race bizarrely, headed down the main straight. Not on earth what's happened there, but Jacko Lacko, bringing his evening to a close from P11 now, so he will see no more of this race. Further up the road, Ghost has already gone through on Rick as I expected. But can he get himself further up the order? That is the question. Look at Lancer aggressively hounding the back of Reshka as Ghost makes another move on Lewis. Gets very close to that dangerous curb on the outside of turn number 8, but manages to hang on to it. He moves into 7th, and the comeback drive as on. Look at Vandersnatch sweeping around the outside of Rick at turn 10. He's going to get superb traction on the exit and will complete that manoeuvre. Fantastic move from last week's debutant, and moves up into position number 9. Vandersnatch on the move. He's up behind Lewis. At the moment, the field's still relatively intact. Reshka, though, struggling to live with the cars in front, and Lancer is going to look to pick him off. 2 wheels on the grass through the banking, but the Ferrari driver is going to get through. Moves up into position number 4 as further back down the field. Rick is coming in. Has he picked up damage, I wonder, on that Red Bull? And that's why he slipped back. He goes on to the medium tyres. There's no front wing change, but he is going to nevertheless come in and has mediums to go to the end of the race. So I'm not sure what exactly has happened there with the Dutchman, but he's going to try and regather himself later on in the Grand Prix from 10th position. But at the moment, this Constructors fight is looking like it's going the way of Williams as it stands. They have 2 drivers right up there. Of course, Reshka's time penalty could be very, very costly for him. Again, I'm surprised he didn't come in and serve that penalty late, just a couple of laps ago. So that's the kind of spoiler effect in this fight. And Red Flame Joe could have a lot more on his shoulders, and he's having to defend from Stephen Basso. As all round Vandersnatch gets tagged by Lewis there in the Mercedes. He recovers, but he's dropped some way back down the order. Vandersnatch is going to have to try and bring it back now. An unfortunate incident as 2 drivers try and go for the same apex. Further up the road, Stephen Basso is looking. They're 3-way for the lead in the turn 1. Unbelievable. Nothing to separate the 3 race leaders onto the exit. Stephen Basso around the outside. Can he get 2 in 1? Sensationally, Stephen Basso leads in Zandvoort. What a stunning move from the man who started right at the rear of the field. Qualifying started in promise, ended in disaster, but that was unbelievable. Stephen Basso has carved his way through the elite field and now has the head of the race here in Zandvoort, stunning the 2 championship contenders. Finley and Red Flame Joe had no response to that, and Finley relegated to P2, Red Flame Joe to P3. That moves Red Flame Joe into championship winning position at the moment, with Lancer pressuring and more drivers stacking up. Ghost, you'd have to say this restart has worked well for him. He's got very little space now between himself and the drivers in front. and challenging towards Reshka. He's going to try and rescue his own Drivers' Championship and, of course, the Constructors for Red Bull. Stephen Vasso leads. Red Flame Joe is all over Finley. This could be such a critical move as they run back to front down the straight, but it looks as though Finley is going to see him off for now. It's difficult to move up in the DRS train, but many of these drivers are trying to do just that. Vandesmat Snatch already reclaims that 8th position on the road. I will try and hunt down the drivers in front, but they are running very, very fast out there at the moment, with Stephen Vasso leading the way, trying to pressure the drivers behind. Wow, this race has been turned on its head in the last couple of laps after that safety car restart. It is Stephen Vasso leading and putting a lot of pressure on CPI Finley. I wonder, Finley's pace seems to have fallen off. Does he have minor damage, I wonder, or is he just having a rough couple of laps? He will just about survive to that detection point and be able to recover somewhat, but yeah, CPI Finley stretched to his limits here to stay with Stephen Vasso. At the moment, he does have to make the move on track if he wants to win that championship. It's very doable with that long DRS zone, but Stephen Vasso, he's gone from the back of the field to the front. He leads this Dutch Grand Prix now as we approach half distance, and he's going to be a tough man to stop. Finley hanging with him for now. That's the status quo at the moment. Lap 15 of the race, Stephen Vasso has gone right through the field. He leads in this season finale. As it stands, it is a group of 7 for the lead. Kylo Ren is still sticking to it. Ghost now up behind Reshka, and you know Reshka, even with this 10-second penalty, is not going to take this lying down. He is going to fight tooth and nail for this 5th position to try and protect his teammate up in front, and just to deny as many points from Red Bull and Ghost as possible, as Rick is going through the pit lane once again to get hard tyres on. I would provide insight on what exactly is going on with Rick if I could, but quite frankly I am rather confused by the passage of his race, and he's so far adrift of the rest of the field now. He has hard tyres back on, so not entirely sure what's happened there, but Stephen Vasso, regardless, still leads the way as it begins to settle into a more traditional DRS train, with the drivers behind being pulled along. Stephen Vasso made an effort to try and break away from Finley, but Finley survived, and now he's looking much more comfortable, managing to get himself reset, rejuvenated if you will, in this leading fight, and closing up behind Stephen Vasso. If he can alleviate too pressure from Red Flame Joe behind him, it means that his championship hopes lie entirely in his hands, and whether he can come out on top in this battle. Still a long way to go, 20 and a half laps of this incredible Dutch circuit in Zandvoort, one that stretches the drivers to their limits, a track that punishes errors to the extreme. You cannot put a foot wrong, and especially with the stakes as high as they are at the moment. So as it stands, it is running fairly in stasis at the moment. Stephen Vasso leads Finley. Finley, I imagine, will be... I imagine if he's got a chance, a clear-cut chance to take away the race lead, he may go for it. He's right up behind him. He does have virtually a full battery, but he knows how this works. He's a very experienced driver in these kind of situations, and he'll know that as for him and Stephen Vasso, they may be happy to just trade the lead away with each other. Finley has a clear-cut chance this lap of getting the move done. He's going to pick up that slipstream down the main straight, and he's going to pull through to the lead. So Finley retakes the race lead from Stephen Vasso, and they tuck in into line. And for Red Flame Joe, he will not like not having a say in how this battle at the front is going to unfold. He'll want to try and be his own spoiler, get in amongst it, and try and use that position as third in the DRS train to catapult his way up and again, affect the strategy, the race running of these front two, as we saw Stephen Vasso do with that double overtake into turn 1 earlier on. So keep an eye on that as they're further back. Reshka is struggling to hold on as Finley dropping down the order. He's gone off and around at turn number 8 and 9. Unbelievable. This CPI Finley with what could be the most crucial error. He's just reclaimed the lead of this race, but he's made an error which could be season defining. Was there contact? I'm not sure. I maybe premature tolling an error. I didn't see it myself, but Red Flame Joe has lost out to Lancer on the track. Lancer up to P2. Red Flame Joe is going to recover, but this championship has just been blown wide open here as Red Flame Joe picks off Lancer, and now he is in the driving seat for this championship as it stands. Again, did not see the nature of that moment. We will have to clear that up with Finley after the race, but one thing is for sure, his championship hopes have taken a hammer blow in this race at the moment. He's down to 7th position. He is cut adrift from the train, and he is going to need a Herculean effort to pull this one back. CPI Finley is in a lot of trouble on the track. Can he recover, I wonder? In the meantime, this has of course created a gap for Stephen Vaso. We saw Red Flame Joe, who lost a substantial amount of time on the last lap too. Stephen Vaso now runs completely in clean air, all on his own, in a world of his own. And how difficult, I wonder, is this man going to be to bring it back? The pace has simply been phenomenal. As I've just got Jacko in the chat, is making a bit of a Scottish reference there to his Wi-Fi, so I think that's probably why he had to pull out of the Grand Prix, having his own issues, as Lancer passes Red Flame Joe on the straights, and these two are going to have to relay, as we say in racing, as Finley regathers one of those positions, but still has an awful long way to go as we just go past half distance. He will again need to move heaven and earth to try and reclaim that championship position he was battling for as it stood. But at the moment he's a long way adrift, 3.5 seconds from the back of Ghost. Ghost himself has been thrust into the limelight, but of course that medium hard delta is going to equalise, and he's not been able to pick his way past Reshka. Reshka's doing a superb job of keeping the championship contender behind and protecting Red Flame Joe. Red Flame Joe running in 3rd place as it stands, more than enough. He's doing just fine and seeing out this championship. So it is really up to the drivers behind to try and make that difference, or hope for a mistake from Red Flame Joe, who runs in that 3rd position. Neither of these guys can live with the pace of Stephen Vaso out in front. 2.4 seconds the difference, but at the moment, I don't know if Red Flame Joe is going to be looking very much at that. He is happy to just trade away with OVR Lancer. Reshka being that buffer between himself and Ghost. Finley adrift and trying to work his way back in and work miracles as it stands. But yeah, at the moment, Red Flame Joe in comfortable position. But we've seen in both Tier 2 and Tier 1 how fortunes can change, so it is far from over. Red Flame Joe is going to have to bring this home, but he is such a cool head under pressure, such a consummate driver, so much speed but so much poise, and you would not put it against him to see this one through. But he has 3 drivers gearing up behind him. We'll see how this battle can unfold. Red Flame Joe in pole position for the championship, Williams 2 for the constructors, but it is not over yet. What will the close to this Zandvoort race provide? In the chat, I've got Jacko asking why Jacko Blacko has been mentioned in the track. I will make no further comment on that. You can probably figure that one out for yourself, my friend. As now we're going to get multiple swaps. The one for look at Ghost lunging to the inside, but it's over on Bish as he runs into the side of Red Flame Joe. He did pick off Reshka though. That could be a critical move, and he is going to put all the pressure in the world, surely, on the championship leader and the 4-time reigning elite champion in front of him. It is 7 championships in elite between these two, and look at Reshka though. He is not going to back down from this fight. He's going to do all he can to apply the pressure on Ghost, make a counter attack, and try and pick his way back through. But Ghost, that was a critical move. He did overcook it into turn 1 and ran into Red Flame Joe, but no harm, no foul, you could say, in that scuffle on the track. now he's got plenty of battery to use. Not as much as Red Flame Joe, mind you, but he is going to be the man on the mission. Can he pick his way back through? Lap 21 of 36. Stephen Vaso comfortably out in front. This train is where all the action is on the track at the moment. Red Flame Joe should comfortably pick off Lancer, but it's when he's at the front of the train when he could have the most trouble. Ghost, I imagine, is going to be hedging on that. He's going to be trying to take advantage. He's so late on the brakes heading into turn 1, and I imagine if he gets a sniff, he is going to grab that opportunity with both hands. He searches for that inside line into turn 3-2, unable to find it, but he's got to be patient here, Ghost. But I imagine he's going to be wary of the dissipating edge of his medium tyres as the stint wears on. He's already stretching them a little bit further than you'd want to from the mediums, while the hards are well within their window to go to the end of the race. So Ghost is going to have to be clinical here, but he can't get too over-ambitious against those two drivers in front. Red Flame Joe will be happy to trade with Lancer. Lancer, of course, as it stands, doing all he can in his own championship bid, but really he's just hoping for misfortune for the other three contenders here. There's not a whole lot the Ferrari man can do but apply all the pressure he can and go as hard as he can in this fight. So they are going to come over the line once more. Red Flame Joe's Lancer is all over the road heading out of that final corner. There's no opportunity for Ghost though to follow through, and Lancer, that really just thwarted his own attack on Red Flame Joe. He's down on battery as well. I wonder if Ghost is going to be aware of that in that Red Bull. Trying to challenge the Ferrari with all his might. Has to remain in P4 for the time being. At the moment, gets a bit of a snapper on though, and Reshka is all over him. Look at this on the run towards turn number 7. Ghost is well aware of that and burns that battery to stay in front of the Williams. He knows Reshka will take any opportunity he can to reclaim that 5th place, and he's taking looks into corners where you wouldn't expect it. Ghost gets onto the curb, but there's no way through for Reshka. But Ghost all over the road tries to regather that car. Will he have DRS? He won't, and Reshka lunges to the inside of turn 10. He's only able to put Ghost offline, but that's enough at the moment as Ghost is detached from the DRS train. Red Flame Joe will see that too. Ghost will be pushing all out through the chicane to try and recapture that DRS. Has he managed it? He may just have done so as we head through the last couple of corners. He has a bit of an error through that last corner though at turn 13, and he does not have DRS. And if Reshka repasses him, as the two drivers in front will swap places, if Reshka goes through here, this could be catastrophic for Ghost, but he has enough room in hand to hold on to that 4th place, and now he's going to have to go on the charge with Lancer now leading that 2nd place duo behind Finlay is chipping away. He's clearly got phenomenal race pace in that Aston Martin, chewing away at that gap in front, but is it going to be enough? He sits 1.3 seconds off of Reshka. His championship hopes are hanging by a thread, but Red Flame Joe, he will see the Williams driver up the road, and that will be a great source of encouragement for the man who, of course, has recently wrapped up a Tier 1 championship. Again, after this race, should it go his way, he may end up even being the highest rated driver in APPF1 history. There's a lot on the line for CPI Finlay tonight, and he is holding absolutely nothing back, charging towards the DRS of Reshka. Is he going to manage to get it? I think he will. He is going to just about have the tow from the back of the Williams, and he is in this fight. He is in the same DRS train as Red Flame Joe. It's a tall order for Finlay, but he's not out of it just yet. We've already seen some scruffy runs from Red Flame Joe throughout this race. It's far from over as it stands. Behind, Van der Snatch moves through on Lewis. Again, his race has been, well, up and down. He's taken knocks, but it's still fighting on. And has 3 seconds to Kylo Ren further up the road. We'll see if he can manage to claw a little something back in that fight for the moment then, but he's got a lot of work to do to salvage any major result as it stands with Lewis behind him. Other than that, he's running very much in no man's land, as is the other Mercedes really of Kylo Ren, running, well, 3 seconds behind the train in front, 3 seconds ahead of the drivers behind, but he won't be 3 seconds ahead anymore as he runs wide, again gets onto that deadly curve at turn 8, and that will drag the drivers behind just that little bit closer. So Kylo Ren may have to be looking over his shoulder more than anything else if he wants to hold on to that 7th place could be under threat somewhat near the end, but we'll keep an eye on that as they head towards lap 26. The laps are beginning to run out, and things are rather calm, it must be said, in this group. As it stands, Lancer and Red Flame Joe are able to swap that 2nd position again and again, and Red Flame Joe is doing more than enough as it stands. He's the highest placed of any of the championship contenders, and remember, he came into this race with a 4-point lead over CPI Finley, an 8-point lead over Ghost, and a 16-point lead over Lancer. Ghost is really, I imagine, the danger man. He's got still as much grip as he can muster from those medium tyres. But as it stands, he can't quite find a way through. 10.5 laps to go. The laps are ticking down, but these guys are running ever closer on the track. And in the laps to come, the tension will mount. Red Flame Joe has to be virtually error-free here. He would still win the championship, I believe, if he slipped to the back of the train and everything else held station, but that's certainly not a gamble he wants to make, and put the championship even further into the balance. But looking for a 5th championship in a row, he is trying to create a legacy. No driver in the history of APPF1 Elite Tier has matched up to this point, as a Ghost in 4th place had a bit of a poor run through the penultimate corner, but look at Finley. Finley with a great run on Reshka. Reshka's going to try and cover him off. They will swap positions up the road. Reshka covering off Finley, looks to the outside, can't find the move. Perfect car positioning from Reshka, who sees off that 5th place, sees off Finley. Can Finley carve out a move? He looks to the outside of turn 3, brakes very, very late. Finley trying to go all the way around the outside, squeezed onto the curb, threading the eye of the needle, and they're going to run side by side up towards turn 7. Finley with almost no space to work with, still in there, and squeezes Reshka to the very edge of the track. Finley has position 5, and what a move it was. He moves to P5 on the road. He gets major oversteer out of turn 9, but he has that critical move on Reshka in the books. Now, Ghost next up on the hit list, and thereafter, Red Flame Joe. Can Finley charge his way back in? It is far from over. He's still got 9 laps to pull this one off. Does CPI Finley, the Tier 1 champion, on his way up. It's going to be very, very tough, but he is a tenacious driver who will fight to the very bitter end, and he now has Ghost just up in front of him. We come through with 9 laps to go. Lancer from Red Flame Joe. Joe will again reclaim that 2nd position, or will he? Lancer is going to hang it round the outside. A harmonious relationship between the 2nd and 3rd place drivers in the race. A little bit thwarted there as a Ghost has a look at a turn 3, unable to find a way through. Red Flame Joe is having to absorb all the pressure, all the might of the 2 drivers tailing him, and of course the 1 driver in front of him. The 4 drivers in mathematical contention for the championship run. 1, 2, 3, 4 on the road, or well, 2, 3, 4 and 5 in the race as it stands, with Steven Vasso well out in front in this race. Red Flame Joe though has Ghost, has Finley all over his gearbox. This is going to be a dramatic ending to the season. Do not go anywhere. The championship is still hanging by a thread, with Red Flame Joe having to see off the intentions of Ghost, and Finley gearing up behind him. I sincerely hope my voice is going to survive to the end of this race as we head through. Red Flame Joe's going to get a clean move on Lancer, this time down the straight. Finley closing on Ghost with a late move, and a late defensive move too from Ghost, who covers it off in that braking zone. Will Finley be too happy with that? He remains fit for now. I think Ghost, it was borderline. I think it was just about okay, but we'll see, of course, what the drivers will think about that one. But I imagine Ghost was just about fine. Of course, the stakes cannot be any higher, and Ghost is doing all he can. His tyres will be at a disadvantage in the last couple of laps, and he will know that he needs to make the difference as early as he can. And he's bursting. He goes late at turn 9. Ghost with an audacious lunge, and I would say far over the limit. He drops behind Finley critically. He's going to drop side by side with Reshka. Will try and hold his way around the outside. Will reclaim the inside line into turn number 11. Runs too deep though. Overcooks it in the braking zone. Reshka though with no counter attack, or does he? He's still in there, still battling on. Ghost has to concede on the entry. Who is going to have DRS down the straight? It will be Reshka and Ghost. What a disastrous lap for the Red Bull driver. He's demoted down the order as a Red Flame Joe will defend. Lancer trying to go all the way around the outside, and a Red Flame Joe has to watch himself with the squeeze. He does manage to hold on to that P2 ahead of Lancer, ahead of Finley. Ghost though, you'd have to say you saw him blipping that overtake button, but I'd have to say that was such a late move into what was really a non-passing place, and has that cost Ghost his last true hope at this Elite Championship, now in 6th place, detached from the rest of the train, and also sets Red Bull way back. Williams are firmly in the driver's seat now for that Constructors' fight. And right now the Drivers' Championship looks like the far more tantalising race, because Lancer and Finley are so close. And well, Finley, let's not forget, look at the fastest lap. It is still firmly in the possession of Steven Vasso, and I don't imagine any of these guys are going to be snatching it away. Maybe Rick will go for it for the Constructors, but Red Flame Joe is going to be so vulnerable here without DRS. Through goes Lancer, and through goes Finley. He tracks the Ferrari past the Williams, goes towards the outside of turn number 1, remains in position 3 on the road, but Red Flame Joe just could not create the gap he needed to, as Reshka, almost off, manages to wrestle the car back onto the road, but his battle with Ghost is brought to an abrupt end. Ghost will charge as hard as he can towards the race leaders. My goodness, I am losing my voice, losing my breath out there. Solo commentary in a race of this magnitude is not easy, it must be said, as Vandersnatch has had an off and brings a tumultuous race to, I imagine, an end from a competitive point of view. We're running out of laps for safety cars to be deployed. And yeah, the disastrous race for the Kick Sauber has not been the second race in the division that he would have been looking for at the moment. So, the championship seems to be boiling down, as it stands, to Finley and to Red Flame Joe, with Lancer being the spoiler in this fight. They're going to come around to Steven Vasso, pits from the lead and gets a time penalty. Were the hard tyres? Was it too long to go? Steven Vasso with a critical strategy call and a critical error, speeding into the pit lane. Now, this is for the race win. And for the championship, that means more points are on offer. Finley now leading the race means, at the moment, oh my goodness, Red Flame Joe has to finish at the moment in P3. He's doing just fine at the moment in P3, with Steven Vasso still holding the fastest lap. But that makes me wonder, are the hard tyres really that treacherous towards the end of the race? Vandersnatch has come in off the mediums. That's far less surprising, especially given how he spun them up. But Steven Vasso not able to see the tyres through to the end of the race, and getting that speeding penalty, that effectively ends, I imagine, his participation in the fight for the win, unless he has a dramatic surge in the final laps. But he's nearly 10 seconds off the win. Finley leads Lancer, but with the fastest lap off the table, all Red Flame Joe needs to do to win this championship, granted on countback, is just to follow these two drivers in front of him home. He's just got to hang on in there, fight as hard as he can, and see it through in the end. Lancer is going to sweep through on Finley. There's nothing Finley can do at the moment. Red Flame Joe, he's been demoted from the head of the train to the rear of the train, but as it stands, he's doing just fine. Again, he came into this round 4 points ahead of Finley, and yeah, he's doing just all he needs to do at the moment. As it stands, I'll have to double check, make sure I've got everything just about right, to make sure we do actually get this calculation right. Lancer now leads the way. Finley from Red Flame Joe on the track. Well, yeah, this could be such a dramatic end to the race. Who knows how it could unfold out there. So just a reminder of the point system. For the point system is, of course, 20 points to the leader, 16 points to second place, and then it'll be third to third place. So actually, I do have to correct myself. Red Flame Joe cannot finish at the lead of this train. He has to finish in second place if he wants to get it on countback. My apologies, that was before Steven Vasso pulled out of the leading fight. So yeah, at the moment, yeah, who knows how this could unfold as they head down towards turn 1. And it's going to be 3 wide almost for the lead again as Red Flame Joe looks towards the outside. Lancer holds it round the outside from CPI Finley as they move on throughout this race. Lancer now leads Finley, Red Flame Joe as Rick comes into the pit lane. I imagine for fastest lap he gets a time penalty, and one has been a race to forget. But it doesn't look like it's going to be enough for Williams and the constructors regardless. Going forward. So we continue on our way with a Lancer leading Finley, leading Red Flame Joe. As it stands, Red Flame Joe, he is doing enough. But a 6-point deficit for Red Flame Joe. If he does end up finishing third and Finley in first, I believe would have to swing it in favour of Finley. That's I don't know if it matches up with the permutation sheet that I have in front of me. So again, I'm just going to have to trust in the calculations as Steven Vasso sweeps past Reshka, moves up into position number 4. He's having a sterling comeback drive, but ultimately the 10-second penalty is going to be what sets him back in this fight as they come over the line. Red Flame Joe is attacking Finley here towards turn 1. Red Flame Joe is round the outside. They bang wheels, not wanting to in the championship. Red Flame Joe looks for that switchback towards turn 2, but Finley runs deep in turn 2, manages to keep it on the island, keep it on the track. He's managed to thwart the intentions of Red Flame Joe. Remember, he came into this race 4 points adrift of Red Flame Joe. If he wins and Red Flame Joe finishes third, that's a 6-point differential, 20 points to 14. Finley would be your champion here in APP Elite Season 13. So it all comes down to the final lap, and CPI Finley has plenty of ERS, so this is going to be a grandstand finish. And Red Flame Joe, I don't think he's close enough to really have much of a say, and he could watch his championship be decided in a duel between the top 2 on the road, as Lancer is going to lead them along. CPI Finley is going to chase him hard, but the gap just 0.3 of a second. Red Flame Joe is in the shadow realm as far as you can see, and CPI Finley is going to take away the race lead from Lancer, and there's nothing Red Flame Joe can do in the background. The fastest lap to Steven Vasso. There'll be no more intentions from these guys in terms of the fastest lap point, but Finley, as it stands, is doing just enough ahead of Lancer. Can he see it through for one final lap? He just has to fend off Lancer to the line, and he will do enough unless Red Flame Joe can work miracles on this final lap. CPI Finley has the head of the race and has the championship in hand. Can he hold it together though with just a couple of corners to go? So now with Finley leading the way, with Lancer chasing him down, Red Flame Joe 9/10 adrift. He's surely got nothing more. His championship may hang in the balance courtesy of OVR Lancer. He's not far away at all from CPI Finley. The championship will come down to a drag race for the line, but Finley gets the stronger exit, is going to pull clear, and unless I'm absolutely mistaken, CPI Finley will lead him across the line from Lancer and Red Flame Joe, and I believe that will be enough. We will verify. I am so sorry about the state of my voice at the end of this race, but CPI Finley, he's done it on track at the very least. Lancer from Red Flame Joe goes to 4th on the road, Steven Vasso 5th, then the 2 Mercedes of Lewis and Kylo Ren. Behind that, Reshka, Vandersnatch and Rick round off your points finishes in the end. So let's see. Again, I will wait to confirm everything. Get confirmation from the rest of the league. But Finley, by a margin of 1/10 of a second on the track, has the win. And yeah, I will just wait for confirmation if he does have the championship in hand. Steven Vasso picks up driver of the day. It was a great drive from the back of the field. His pace was tremendous, but in the end did have to come in. Was it tyres? The speeding penalty put pay to any chances he had in the end. So we will run through the results. CPI Finley takes the race win on track from OVR Lancer in second place, Red Flame Joe in third. Behind that, Ghost comes in next, then Stephen Vasso fifth, Lewis, a good drive, all things considered, a good result, sixth, then of Kylo Ren, seventh, then Reshka, Vandersnatch, Rek, then behind that, Jacko Lacko, Lawrence, and JB not seeing out the checkered flag. Wow, what a finale again. Deeply apologise for the state of my voice at the end of that race, with Finley just managing to see it through in the end from Lancer. Lancer put up one hell of a fight in the end on track. Comes through second place in the end, but just a 10th shy of the race win. Red Flame Joe takes third position. On the road, of course, we do wait for potential for confirmation from the rest of the drivers. Again, I did wrongfully call the championship on Tuesday, but unless my massively sleep-deprived maths is wrong, I do believe that Finley is your champion, overhauling Red Flame Joe by a margin of 2 points. In the end, yes, I can confirm now, CPI Finley will be your champion here in APP Elite Season 13. It has been an incredible finale, which came down to the end, a margin of 1/10 of a second separating winner from loser in the championship. Commiserations to Red Flame Joe, but you have to say that was a tremendous dogged drive from CPI Finley. Remember, he was well adrift as it stood in the middle of the race, and fought his way back in, made critical moves to get himself. Remember, he was third in that train. It's always so tough to move your way through when you're in that position, and in the end he managed to pick his way through in the end, make the critical moves, and get it done in the end. CPI Finley is, well, he's your race winner on the night. He was your Tier 1 winner, champion the other night on Friday, and now he is your Elite champion. Wow. I do have to sincerely apologise for the state of my commentary at the end of this race, by the way. That was, quite frankly, not good enough for myself to cover what was an incredible finale in the end, but yeah, that was pretty stunning stuff out on the circuit, and that will be Season 13 of APP Elite now in the books. Wow. And yeah, I'm not quite sure what to say in the end. Of course, that will bring one of the most dramatic championship weekends of racing I believe I have seen really throughout my time in league racing. 3 incredible championship fights, and not least here in Elite, with a battle right down to the flag. But yeah, that will just about do it for the season. Again, I am a very tired man. I do not want to be sticking around for too much longer, but yeah, all I can say is, wow, absolutely stunning stuff. Congratulations to all the drivers for putting on a show, and yeah, all that remains to be seen is we will see you next season. As for, well, I will just give a quick mention for potential driver of the day. But I think it can only go one way. The tenacity of CPI Finley there. Of course, it was not a perfect driver. You could not say a single driver drove a perfect race tonight, but ultimately, he came through all the trials and tribulations and came away with the ultimate prize. And he is, at the moment, you have to say, APP's premier driver ahead of next season. One more season left to go in the game cycle. We shall see how it ends up, but I think that has been just about it for tonight. So thank you all very much for watching, and we will see you next season. Goodbye.